Let's see. Here we go. All right. So let's run this back. Had technical difficulties. So, everybody, welcome to the first episode of Some Get It, Some Don't podcast. I was thinking about who could be the first guest, and I came up with this brilliant idea to ask my grandma to be the first guest on my podcast. So, to start off, as I said earlier, thank you for doing the podcast. I appreciate it. I think as we go through this journey, most people will understand why I chose you to be the first guest, and they will understand the love that I have for you. So I think it's gonna be a dope episode. So get ready. Okay. So thank you, Granny, for doing this. I didn't say it said it a while ago before we had technical difficulties, but Miss Wanda Jean McCarty. So we'll go back to what I was saying before I realized I was not recording. So yes, as I said, February 22nd, 1945, Paris, Texas. So can you let us know how life was growing up in Paris?
I grew up as Wanda Jean Colbert,
Oh, excuse me. Excuse me.
and now I am a McCarty.
Okay, sorry.
And life in Paris it was good. I went to school in Paris, I mean in Catterley, and I grew up not knowing that we weren't poor, but we had what we needed as a family. I grew up with two sisters and one brother, and my mom and dad, and they worked, we worked, and we learned
Big
that
cotton.
I didn't say what we done, I said we worked.
Okay. Okay. All right. I know it wasn't too much to do in Paris, Texas, so that's why I asked the question.
Well, since we were growing up there, we worked, we had that supplied us with clothing, food, and shelter. So we didn't go without food. We went to school. We had clothes to wear on our backs and some money in our hands to do little necessities that we needed to do.
Oh, I know growing up in Paris, y'all probably had $5 and was rich back then, right?
Well, uh, whatever we had some money to spend.
Oh, okay.
And we had money. Our parents allowed us to, while we worked, we learned to, whatever we worked, whenever we worked, my parents got 3 days of what we worked for, and the children got 2 days of what we worked for. So that allowed us to have money in our pockets in order to buy school clothing, church clothing, whatever we needed with the 2 days of work that was went to us.
Okay. So that's why you're so tight, because you grew up working 5 days and only getting to keep two.
Well, that was what we did back then.
No, I
But that
understand it, but
kept
I'm saying
us
that
it,
see that makes sense.
it kept us with money in our pockets.
Okay. Nothing wrong with it. I'm just understanding now more how you became who you became. So okay, well let's move on. For those who don't know, growing up in Paris and all the things to do was work and get married. So we're gonna fast forward a little bit. So you moved to Lubbock. Can you explain the move to Lubbock? Um, if you had kids at the time, you didn't explain that a little bit.
When I moved to Lubbock, I had me and my husband, Wilma Jean McCarty, had three children. They were all born in Paris, Texas.
My mama
We
was born
moved
in
to
the
Lubbock
outhouse.
because we came to Lubbock on a vacation. And my husband's aunt, who was Carrie Humphrey, wanted him to stay out here. So he found a job while we were on vacation,
Oh man.
and he was going to come and get us after he found a place for us to live in a month. But he came and picked us up in 3 weeks. And we have been out here ever since.
Okay. So you moved to Lubbock, had 3 kids, you and your husband. For those who don't know, it's my Uncle Keith, then my Aunt Jackie, and then my mom. So those are the 3 kids. Um, so let's move forward a little bit. Let's talk about how did you get involved with at Lions Chapel Baptist Church?
We moved out here in 1965. I joined Lounge Chapel Baptist Church in 1966. And I
Okay.
have been there ever since.
Okay, so it's pretty safe to say that you grew up in church. You knew the importance of church. So when you moved to Lubbock, that was probably one of the first things that you wanted to do was find a church home.
That's what I did because I didn't work when we first moved out here until all 3 of my children started school.
Okay. Well, this is gonna segue into the next point. So we're gonna touch on a lot of different things. Some are pretty traumatic experiences, but we're gonna touch on them because I think that's going to uh paint the full picture of how you became who you became and your faith in God and stuff. So obviously you just explained the importance of going to church and having a relationship with God. So can you share with us what it was like not only losing a child but a grandchild as well in 1992? Like what kind of impact did that have on you and how was your faith in God how did your faith in God help you through that time?
If I would not have faith in God, I don't know what I would have done when I lost my child and grandchild together. When you're losing a child and a grandchild, that's a deep, deep, deep hurt. You never as deeply as you do when you lose a child. And if I hadn't have known God, hadn't not having a relationship with God, it would have been awful for me.
Okay. And that's why I wanted to touch on that importance of finding a church home and your faith in God, because I know you have a strong faith in what you went through with that situation. I know that it took a lot of faith, a lot of prayers to get you through that time.
It certainly did take a lot of prayer. And that prayer you have to continue because miss that child, even though you have 2 more children, but you always miss that one as well because that's part of me. So you still have to pray strength because long as that child, she was with me for 26 years. So you just don't forget that child.
I understand. And for those who don't know, that's my mother, who's the child that she lost. So I think I was about to be 6, right?
Yes.
About to be 6.
Yes.
So so all these perfect segues. So can you explain how it was raising this child of hers by the name of Antoine Tremore Washington? Can you speak on that a little bit?
Now, you were cutting out a little bit.
Okay, I'll repeat it because I think we having some more technical difficulties, but I just asked, can you explain how it was raising this child of hers?
Well, when my child died and I knew that we were going to raise her child, my husband got right on it to get custody of this child. And what I did is I felt like we were older parents, grandparents, and that I was one needed help to raise this child. So what I did, I prayed and give my grandson, Antoine Washington, to the Lord. And I didn't take him back. I just give raise this child because this is a help to raise this child. So I just give Antoine Washington to the Lord. And that's how you turn out to be the person that you are because I gave you to the Lord at a young
I'm
age.
thankful for that. I'm thankful for that. So thank you for all the prayers too, but for sure for giving me to the Lord, because the good Lord knows I could have strayed away from that path many times. So thank you for that. So speaking of that, I don't think a lot of people, and sorry if I'm cutting out, just tell me to repeat myself. I think I'm having some connection issues, but um I don't think a lot of people know as through the years by you raising me, you and my grandpa, of course, that we became real close. So I would talk to you about everything and anything, especially Papa, because he was just so cutthroat and he didn't care. He just would tell you how it was and how it is. I remember we had a conversation to me about having a kid, and he was like, "They gonna take that check from you, boy, if you have a kid." And so that's just kind of how it was growing up with y'all. You was always put the fear of God in me, and he would always just put the fear of him in me. So it was even, you know. You would always have me in church, and then he would just be the one to just tell it how it is all the time. So we developed a great relationship a long time ago, and I feel like I could always tell you anything. So yeah, it was a different dynamic. Obviously, sometime as a man, you probably would go to your father or your grandfather, which I had great relationships with both, and my uncle too. But I would always tell you all the stuff. So I think that was pretty cool how our relationship developed over the years. So all right, moving on. Which this is another traumatic experience or traumatic experiences for you. So not only did you have to deal with losing a child and a grandchild, but you also have lost a sister, your mother, and your husband. So can you explain how those situations impacted your life?
Those in, impacted losing my mom and my sister is a hurt as well because you always want your mom around. And I know she got to be up in age, but I still wanted her around, as well as my sister, who she died at a young age, and you always miss your sisters or brothers, you always miss them. And when you lose your husband, that's another hurt because that's your partner. And th- that's someone that you've been with for 56 years. You're going to always miss them. Just to have somebody to talk to be with, so you won't a person to not so you won't be a lonely person. Not saying that I'm lonely now, but you always miss someone that you've been with as many years as we were together.
Okay. So, but as you said earlier, though, I think this is a true testament of your faith in God and how you persevered over the years through all these different traumatic experiences. Because not only that, the last thing that I wanted to touch on as far as these traumatic experiences is that your other daughter had a situation, I think it's roughly 20 years ago, maybe a little bit more now, but where you had to not only uproot yourself and go live with her for a little bit. Then you brought her back and you've been taking care of her all of these years. Like, how does that feel? And how do you ever think about just how strong you are to deal with all of these situations in life and still be keeping your faith in God, obviously, and still just pushing forward? If you want to talk about like that situation and how it's changed you as well.
Mm. That situation was another hurt, but we didn't lose her, so there wasn't as deeply as the first, the one that happened in 1992. This happened with my oldest daughter, Jacqueline, in 2005. When we got the news that she had been flown to Dallas, to the Baylor Hospital, and we left Lubbock, Texas at about 3:30 in the morning, and it was storming out there. So we went over, picked up my son, and he drove us to Garland, Texas, where I prayed along the way. And I asked the Lord that if my child wouldn't be dead or anything, that let me go to sleep while traveling. So that's what the Lord did for me, because they didn't think she would make it. So I prayed that the Lord, if my child is going to be okay, meaning not dead, let me go to sleep while we're traveling. And I went to sleep. So when we got there, she was not. So I'm thankful that I had that connection with the Lord, that he heard my prayer.
Yeah, and that's crazy because I mean, obviously, I didn't know that full story because I wasn't there, but I remember that day because I went to go to my Aunt Charlotte house, and if I'm not mistaken, I stayed there with them that night. So I remember. Well, he left with y'all, but with her. So yeah, I remember that situation. But I just wanted to touch on those just to kind of show all the things that you've had to go throughout your life, but you still kept your faith in God, which you still have faith in God, and you still been the pillar of our family. So I think that was something to highlight to show the world that for those who don't know you, all the things that you've been through, but still, keep a smile on your face, still go to church. So I know a lot of times when that happened to people, they can kind of lose their faith or trust in God, but you haven't steered away one moment. So I thought that was good to point that out to let people know that in life you're gonna go through some things. Some people go through way more than other people, but you're just a perfect example of just keeping the faith, even though everything around you you're losing stuff around you and everything is going crazy. You haven't lost your faith one bit. So kudos to you with your faith in God, and God has touched you. As I always tell you, I don't know anybody as strong as you. So thank God for you being my granny. So the next thing is, which everybody says it who knows you, like, what do you think of how people always say, Miss Wanda, she's just so nice and so sweet and everything. Like, I don't know anybody who has anything bad to say about you. I always make the joke that you be gossiping all the time, but I think that's what everybody do. So, and it ain't just bad. I'll just, y'all, when I say it, she just be what everybody does, just talking about what's going on. So, but how do you feel, or what do you think attributed to the way that you are, how you're so nice and sweet to people, always super selfless? Like, was that something that you were brought up with, or that's just something that's always been in you?
That's something I was brought up with. My mom was like that. I know as she got older, her attitude changed, but it could happen to me as well. But I was brought up just being nice to people. I was taught to be nice to people. If I wanted people to be nice to me, I have to be nice to them. And then as you get closer to the Lord, you learn that you've got to love people. You got to do good to people. You got to be a blessing to people. So that's just uh, the way one should live. That's the way I choose to live. Because I know the Lord is not going to bless me if I'm not going to do his will. And if I'm going to be a servant to the Lord, I need to do his will.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I can speak to that. My grandma has helped me out throughout my whole life. So, it was funny when my grandpa, I would call and I asked my grandma for something, even though I know she was gonna do it, she'll still say no. So I just called my grandpa and he'd be like, get that boy that money. So now that my grandpa is no longer here, I call her and of course she'll ask me why or you sure, and she'll end up doing it. So I ain't gonna lie to y'all. I'm spoiled and it's because of my grandma. Of course, my dad, my uncle, everybody in my family spoiled me, but it's most definitely my grandma. So I want to tell a funny story and to kind of touch back on all this. So growing up, my grandma refused to buy me like cheap clothes and stuff. So I used to shop at Dillard's. Well, I shop. She would shop at Dillard's to buy me clothes. And so, of course, my grandma, she just worked hard. They didn't, my grandparents weren't rich, but as she said with her growing up, I didn't ever want for anything, but it was funny because she would buy me like Tommy Hilfiger, whatever was popping at the time. But I would go to school and I qualified for free lunch. Well, she said she didn't want me to have free lunch because I was going to school with Tommy Hilfiger. And I'm just like, what? What does that got to do with anything? All my other friends getting free lunch, but just because I was wearing these clothes that she bought me, she didn't want me to have free lunch. And I only brought that story up to fast forward it to 10 plus years in my life. And she asked me, why do I like these expensive clothes? And I told her I wouldn't even know anything about expensive clothes if you wouldn't have took me to Dillard's. I had friends that was wearing Route 44 from Kmart and all kind of stuff, but she was buying me stuff from Dillard's. So as I grew up, I wanted Dillard's. So for all those people who think that I'm materialistic, I'm gonna tell you it's my grandma. But the most ironic thing about this, though, this is why I say she's super selfless. She don't own anything expensive. She don't like jewelry like that. She'll wear, some earrings and stuff like that, but she doesn't have anything that's expensive at all. But me, I have all this expensive taste because of what she did for me. So it's kind of ironic that she poured into us, and that's not just me, all her grandkids, her great grandkids too. She'll buy you all the expensive stuff, but she don't wear nothing expensive. So I just want to tell that story to highlight why I'm the way that I am is because of my granny. So do you want to refute any of that story? Is any of that a lie?
Well, I do have a few expensive things.
A few, yes, you do
They're
probably,
that
but
they're not expensive. They are sale items from expensive stores.
No, okay. Well, you got some sale items, so okay. Well, all right. We don't
And
have too
then
much more. Oh, go ahead. Keep going.
I said, and then my husband didn't like for me to wear cheap clothes.
Well, yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Your husband didn't like it, but I'm sure that was something that he had to force you to do. It ain't like you was doing it willingly. I know that for sure.
Mm.
Exactly. All right, so let's talk about. I got a few more things. The one of the things I want to talk about is I don't know if I've ever asked you this question before, but is there anything in this life that you ever wanted to do that you didn't get a chance to do, or that you have not gotten a chance to do yet? Whether it's a place that you wanted to go, or anything that you thought about doing growing up, anything.
One thing that I really wanted to do up until 2020 is to go on a cruise.
So up until the
And
pandemic
then
changed your
after
mind.
2020, yes, yes, I changed my mind about that.
Okay. And it changed your mind just due to the pandemic, or just you just
Yes,
saying, okay,
due to the pandemic.
okay. Was it any specific place that you wanted to go, or just a cruise anywhere?
I really wanted to go to the Bahamas.
To the Bahamas. I heard they
Yes.
have the clearest water in the world.
Yeah, but the cruise ship do not.
No, the cruise ship does not. But I'm saying once you get to the Bahamas, I heard it's pretty nice.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and then I had one other follow-up question. So with the climate that we live in today, obviously not even the political stuff, but just what's going on in the world. We see a lot of stuff happening for those who are believers. and read the Bible. I do want to touch a little part B to that. For those people who don't know, my grandma instilled in me to read my Bible at an early age. So I think I read the entire Bible front to back like 8 times. So she is the reason why I do that. She would always make when I would go out and stuff, she would come in there on Sunday morning, like, if you can go out, you can go to church. So I would always, if I went out, I still go to church. I still wake up. The first thing I do is pray and read my Bible. So I wanted to highlight that while I was touching on this point. But for those who are believers like yourself and myself, what do you think is needed in the world today besides a lot of prayer?
To trust in God, not man.
Trusting
That's
God, not
what's
man.
most needed now is to trust in God.
I agree. And so
Because a
I do
lot of
have, oh, go
people is
ahead.
trusting in man. A lot of
I
people is
agree.
trusting in man, trusting in who's going to lead the country. And that's not who we should be trusting in. They can't do nothing for us that the Lord can't do. So we put our trust in the Lord.
Okay. And just another follow-up question to that. How do you feel about these like churches and stuff that are either taking advantage of the people their members, or those people who may be, preaching false doctrines? How do you feel about those things?
Would you repeat that?
Yeah, so like how do you feel about these churches, we see on TV or shows or stuff that we hear on see on social media where these churches are taking advantage of the members. Then you have these people that are preaching, false doctrines, not really following the Bible. How do you feel about those type of churches?
I think that if you're attending churches that's doing that, you need to find another church home. Because you need to be settled with a man of God, a man that preaches the word, and a man that treats his sheep the same. Your shepherd should be able to treat all of his sheep the same.
Don't forget a man or a woman, Granny. We have some women preachers.
And that's true. Man or woman, whoever you are, whoever they should be preaching the word and not treating people different, not raising money for themselves, but just try to save souls, because that's why some are some preachers are called, some are sent, and some went. But
Oh Lord.
but the bottom line is they should be, man or woman should be trying to save souls.
I'm all with that 100%. So, well, Miss Wanda Jean McCarty, aka my granny, those were all the questions I had. So, first and foremost, once again, as I said, I want to thank you for being the first guest on my Some Get It, Some Don't podcast. I'm going to be interviewing a couple of other people in the upcoming days, weeks. So I think it's going to be a dope podcast. But I did want to leave out and tell you, I know you know this, but I wanted the world to know how much you mean to me. I think you already know that you are the, well, I don't know now because I have Ava, but you are one of the most special people in my life. As I tell people all the time, I try to do whatever I can to make you happy. I know, of course, throughout the years I've done things or maybe fell short, but at the end of the day, I just want you to know how much you mean to me, and I appreciate all the sacrifices y'all made for me growing up. I was just telling the story how my grandpa made me feel so stupid one time when I was learning my multiplications, but that's just how I was raised, and I thank y'all for that. As I always tell people, I was raised with my grandparents, and my other friends had their parents, and it was not the same for me. I had a curfew until I was 21. I think I still, maybe to this day, have only had an alcoholic drink in front of my grandma maybe 5 times. So she knows I drink, but which I'm cutting back. But anyway, so I just want you to know how much you mean to me. I'm sure you already know that, but as I said, I wanted the world to know that as well. So thank you for being a great mentor, the pillar of our family. As you said earlier, you gave me to the Lord. So thank you for that. Always praying for me, because who knows where I'd have been without those prayers. They always say a grandma prayers is, does wonders for you. So I just wanted you to know that you mean a lot to me. So thank you. And it even means more to me that you was the first guest on my podcast. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. And you has been a child that we really felt like you were our child instead of our grandchild. We were very proud of you. We're pleased with you. And I think just because you were raised by older people, you were raised different from my older children. So I'm thankful that the Lord made you who you are today. And
Well,
if it
thank
had
you.
not been for him, you would not have been what you are today. So I'm thankful that you are who you are. I'm very proud of you, proud to claim you as my grandson.
Well, good. The feelings are mutual. So once again, thank you. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties. I think we had some connection issues, but we powered through the interview, so we gonna rock it. So, but thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Love you, Granny. I love you.
Love you as well.
All right, you have a good one.
You too.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.